in this, I think. Anyway, there's lots to get to. Let's get to it first. Let's start with free speech. Russell, host of the Canadian Conservative podcast, says approaching North Korea levels of free speech or of speech policing in some areas of Canada. Western Standard says 2 Calgary men charged for a conversation on transit en route to 1 million March for Children. Full story, click the photo. And Russell's got a picture here of a story from way back in Mao's China, I believe, but this is Yunemi Park, I guess, was old enough to understand her mother gave her a warning. Even when you think you're alone, the birds and mice can hear you whisper. Growing up under the repressive regime of Kim Jong-il, okay, so no, it wasn't China, North Korea, Park was taught never to express her opinions or ask questions. The dictator, she believed, could read her mind. I mean, yeah, they can, because they look on your social media and they put together a whole profile of you, and then they can presume that you're one of those freedom people, right? Here's Western Standard: 2 Calgary men charged for a conversation en route to the Million Man March, or the Million March for Children. And here's the article, which is pretty incredible. 2 men are charged under a Calgary transit bylaw for allegedly making an unknown passenger You don't have a right to know your accuser, sir. You made somebody uncomfortable with that speech, and that's enough to arrest you. No, you don't get to know who you made uncomfortable with their conversation. The men allegedly, quote, interfered with the comfort of an unknown transit user while on the way to Calgary's 1 Million March for Children protest on Saturday. They're scheduled to appear in court in late November. Represented by the Democracy Fund, a Canadian civil liberties nonprofit, TDF defends the rights of transit users against the anti-free speech transit bylaw. The organization wrote in their news release, pointing out that the city of Calgary has yet to disclose details of the impunged communications. According to the city's bylaw, passengers must, quote, not interfere with the comfort, convenience, or quiet use and enjoyment of the transit system of any reasonable person. The 2 individuals report having had a private conversation on the C train with a like-minded passenger while traveling to the march in a nearly empty train car. However, it appears their conversation was overheard and reported. The men were detained when they got off the train. One was handcuffed while police confirmed his identity, and they were both issued a ticket and summons to court. TDF wrote to the city of Calgary for disclosures about the alleged offenses, but have not yet received a reply. Wow, that's incredible. Right? In the press release, TDF cited the significance of the 1 Million March for Children that took place Saturday, 1 month following the widespread success of the September 20th march. Noting each side took a strong stance. People supporting the march describe it as a protest of indoctrination and sexualization of children in schools, while detractors call it hateful. Is that balanced reporting? Here is another jaw-dropping situation in Canada. Ryan says the Canadian government wants to be the Ministry of Truth. Won't it be great having them determine what is regarded as misinformation and disinformation? Here is this.
Element that I know we Liberals put a lot of effort on is the recommendation 16 on making sure that the Government of Canada hold online platforms accountable for publishing false or misleading information, and that it develops policies to support the media ecosystem in communities and linguistic minority communities not represented by mainstream media to ensure that vulnerable communities are not re-victimized.
I guess, how will you hold these online platforms accountable for publishing false or misleading information?
The how has not been determined yet, but I assume that we'll have to have boxing gloves. If I look at what's happening in other area, for instance, with local medias, at some point, companies will have to understand that they're actors and they're not the government. So I think that will take a firm position. That's what Europe did. And I think that's what we'll have to do here. We're not into the how at the company, we're into the why. But nonetheless, I think what happens online is basically shaping society. And if we're not acting in a decisive manner, it will shape society to the bottom, and we have to act.
And then the Tories, they released their own dissenting report, and I believe this recommendation is the only one they disagreed with. They view that it's going to stifle Canadians' freedom of expression. I guess, how are you concerned about that as you target social media companies and monitor what's published online?
Well, we obviously disagreed on this one. The freedom of expression is often brought forward, but this is not what we're talking about. Actually, we're not censorship and freedom of expression are not the same thing. I mean, they're not the opposite. So I don't think that holding media companies accountable has anything to do with freedom of expression.
I was actually very surprised and disappointed to see.
So there's a lot to unpack with what he's saying. He doesn't think that freedom of expression has anything to do with censorship. He says he doesn't think holding media companies accountable has anything to do with infringing on freedom of expression, so on and so forth. It is very, very concerning when our governing documents, our Charter of Freedoms, etc., explicitly state that you're allowed to have freedom of expression. You have the freedom with your body and your mind to express yourself. That is a God-given right. There is no government that can take that away from you. And they're trying to take that away through regulation of the internet and things like that. Things that have become the public square are going to be regulated because they say, well, if we allow this, we're taking society to the bottom. But if we allow censorship, we're taking society to the bottom. If we allow these people to decide what misinformation and disinformation is, none of the COVID stuff would come out. No, none of it. And I mean, I've got some doozies for you later on in the show today. So it is antithetical to Canadianism, to Canada's culture, antithetical to the agreement between the government of Canada and the governed in Canada. It is absolutely illegal, a violation of our charter rights. And I know the charter is garbage. And it's even in the United States, they're saying we're in a post-constitutional world. The government can do anything they want to do. And there's nothing that's holding a check and balance, not the Constitution, not anything. They are absolutely out of control. Yes, same in Canada, right? So I understand that. But at some point, we had a government that understood their responsibility was to its citizens and not to globalist masters who want to flood the country with a different group of people to replace the current population. It's unbelievable that these people have twisted and done mental gymnastics to bring themselves to the point of saying, we need to censor the internet in order to maintain democracy and freedom. That's where they're at. Hey, love it. What is that 1984 quote? War is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength. Right? So all of these things, they're just trying to shove it down our throats. And it's wild. It's something I did not expect to experience. JD says there is a massive coordinated effort by Western governments to censor information online in the name of free speech and safety. In Canada, it's the Digital Charter Act. In the EU, it's the Digital Services Act. In the United Kingdom, it's the Online Safety Bill. And in the United States, it's the Ministry of Truth. I don't think they're calling it the Ministry of Truth, although everybody did call it the Ministry of Truth. And they walked it back within 4 or 5 days. It wasn't very long before she was out of that position and it no longer existed, because policing truth, it is next to impossible. I mean, and what they're going to do is they're going to profile people. The profile is going to be, says things we don't like. And then they're going to say, this person spreads misinformation, and say, see, look at the COVID stuff he's talking about. That's obviously misinformation. Look at the official story, experts say. See, look at what he says about climate change. That's disinformation, very dangerous. People won't believe in climate change, and then they won't give us their money. What do you do with their money when you have it for climate change? Don't ask racist questions. Honestly, here is what they're going to do about leakers. These same people who are telling you that they're going to need boxing gloves to bring in the censorship that they want to bring in, because censorship is not the same thing as, free expression. Here is what they're going to do about leakers.
Your committee heard that over the course of decades, the governments failed to act on foreign interference. And all of this came about because people leaked national security secrets. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious if you can explain why you decided to recommend moving forward with strengthening rules and penalties governing the illicit disclosure of national security intelligence. So why target leakers?
Okay, well, leakers, it's a very subtle subject, first of all, because the committee started its work in August 2022, first of all. So that's before the leaks. And we started hearing about parliamentarian that could have been corrupt or something in August. So the story took a good envol after the leaks. Okay. Now, in general, why do people leaks? It's probably because they feel that things don't move fast enough. And in their own heart, usually, they want to achieve what they're working for, and they leak. Now, this is a serious offense to national security, and at the same time, it's very useful. So I would, as an ethics specialist, I would not approve leaks in general, but I'm forced to say that in this case, it helped a lot. And what we should be looking at is not trying to find who leaked in order to punish, but instead working on what was leaked and fix it.
It helped a lot, but we also have to work on what was leaked and fix it. What did it help with? What are you talking about? And the longer context is, I don't have it with me, so apologies that I don't have it. But it seems like this government is doing everything it can to focus on shutting down free speech, censoring Canadians, while allowing their cronies and insiders to set the narrative, to set reality. I'm sure they'll appoint some wee brothers to be the paragons of truth, right, in Canada. Excuse me, Larry Brock says, can't find a section in the NDP Liberal coalition deal that says Jagmeet Singh needs to cover up for Trudeau's corruption. So why did the NDP vote to shut down the RCMP commissioner from testifying on Trudeau withholding documents during their probe on the SNC-Lavalin affair? So Larry Brock is really, really gunning for Justin Trudeau. And I mean, it's nice to see. The gloves are definitely off. This is a shame campaign. So they know that the Liberals are going to shut these committees down. They know that they're moving people into positions to have grandstanding shutdowns so they'll make news cycles. That's the whole point of this strategy. I like it. I think the strategy is good. So here's Larry Brock again. He says, Trudeau blocked the RCMP from accessing documents in SNC-Lavalin affair. If obstruction of justice were to be determined, that offense is punishable by jail time. No one in Canada is above the law, especially this Prime Minister. I've never seen, that's not true. French president, it wasn't Macron, the guy before him, I can't remember his name. Hold on a second, I'm going to look it up. Sarkozy. This is around the time of the Bunga Bunga parties. Berlusconi. Berlusconi used to have Bunga Bunga parties, and Sarkozy I can't remember if he went or if it was like a scandal because he was on the plane to go to the Bunga Bunga party. Anyway, regardless of all that, Sarkozy was arrested and jailed for campaign funding irregularities and things like that. I don't think I've seen, and like he went to jail. He went to jail. Oh no, he will not be jailed. I thought he went to jail. It says here he will not be jailed. Okay, so he didn't go to jail. But they slapped him on the wrist good and hard. They said, Mr. Sarkozy, right? Just like in Canada when things go wrong. Here's a $500 fine. Anyway, I've not seen a situation, including Mr. Sarkozy, that a head of state has gone to jail and they had to be, they were honestly held to account for the things that they've done. So I'm not holding my breath. I'm not holding my breath on this one. I hope, because Larry Brock he's putting his neck out here. He is gunning for the Prime Minister and he's not pulling punches. I mean, like, you think me calling Justin Trudeau potato headed is bad. I mean, it got my whole YouTube channel canceled, right? He doesn't like it. He doesn't like it. He doesn't like people making fun of him, and he doesn't like people going directly for him. And this is like in the Ninja Turtles when they're going after Shredder on the top of the building at the end of the show, and they go after him one at a time, and then Shredder, easily deposes them all, and then he falls off the roof into the trash compactor, right? Right. Here's Larry Brock.
I know that you were successful, sir, through an ATIP of receiving some 1,815 pages of RCMP records with respect to, quote unquote, their assessment as opposed to investigation. We now know that there are well over 2,000 pages that have yet to be released to you. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's accurate.
And quite frankly, sir, with my legal background over 30 years, I have prosecuted multiple homicides that actually had less disclosure than obstruction of justice. All criminal code offenses are serious. This one in particular is very serious. It's a hybrid offense. And if convicted by indictment, that individual would go to prison. So I appreciate the seriousness by which you conducted yourself, sir, on behalf of Canadians.
Very, very interesting, right? If this was served on indictment, that person would be looking at jail time. Very, very interesting. The message is not lost on me anyway. Kirk is pointing this out. He says Canada's NDP party leader Jagmeet Singh is being spoon-fed ice cream by Pavkar Singh Dwali, who was put on the no-fly list in 2018 by Canadian Security and Intelligence Services, CSIS, for allegedly being a suspect to being a facilitator of terrorist-related activities. Khalistani. What do you make of this? Weird, right? I don't know when this image is from. Here's Circulon, and I thought this was a funny kind of take. He says, this doesn't mean he knows the guy. I'm sure he's spoon-fed ice cream by random people he doesn't know all the time. Did you hear Polyev shook hands with the goat figurine guy, though? So, is this man a terrorist? If it was a situation where these were different players, say Polyev had Jeremy McKenzie feeding him ice cream, would that be a big scandal? What do you think the difference would be? That's the reason I wanted to show you this, right? It's just interesting, the things that are talked about and the things that aren't, the things that are focused on and the things that aren't. Another thing that I read was talking about how importing, so the Eritrean and the Khalistani conflicts, we've seen both of those things flare up, and now we're watching Israel-Palestine. We are importing exclusively people from places in conflict, and those conflicted, divided people are coming and bringing their conflict here. The Eritreans, the Palestinian, Israelis, excuse me, and all of them, right? Palestinian, all of them are doing this here. And so it does not benefit Canada, and the division actually helps foster chaos, create more chaos to exploit and confuse the Canadian people, right? Because you're like, well, this isn't my horse. There's no, like, I'm not supporting either side. Why are we even, what? Right? Holly Doan talking about the barn. This is the barn. I said there's an awful lot of concrete on here. Somebody said that the concrete comes from, they gave me a name and it's just escaping me at this point in time. So it was a good joke too. Shucks. Somebody also said the orientation was all wrong for the solar. So I don't know if that's actually true. They said it wasn't southern facing. They looked at it on Google Earth and it wasn't the correct orientation. I'll have to take their word for it. I was like, oh, that's wild. Anyway, MPs on Commons Public Accounts Committee will question federal managers over an $8 million solar paneled warehouse. So in Redo Hall. That's shocking. It's not shocking. It's not shocking. These buildings like this, all of this spending is supposed to be demoralizing for Canadians, I think. That's part of it, because who does that help? We've heard news for like 6-8 months, and even before, when Harper was in office, that 24 Sussex Drive was in need of repairs, $6 million in repairs, and so on and so forth. And people were like, we can't spend that kind of money on a prime minister's house. That's just wasteful. But we can spend $8 million on a barn. Sure. Yeah, great. On a barn compound, maybe there's I don't know, underneath. Do you think, how deep does that go? Is there a basement in the barn here? You think maybe a couple of layers of basement, maybe? That'd explain the $8 million price tag. But it seems really strange to have so many public concerns about the prime minister's residence, and then for the prime minister to fix up the residence where his ex-wife is staying with some of their kids sometimes, depending on if Trudeau's brought them on political junkets. Weird, right? It's all weird. It's all strange, and I don't like any of it. German MEP Christine Anderson, so-called democratically elected leaders are actually puppets for unelected globalist totalitarians who fabricate global crises, from COVID to the climate crisis, as a pretext to impoverish and enslave the global population. That is exactly the conclusion I've come to as well. So here's somebody else articulating what I think probably is the problem true. Sorry, I was trying to change the time before I turned it on. But yeah, she gets there in the first minute. She kind of articulates all of that very quickly. And I know this guy, but I can't remember his name. He's kind of laughing and saying, yeah, that's accurate. Here we go.
The problem for, I call them the globalitarian misanthropists, for lack of a better word, but I think that's very fitting. They are actually running the world. And, for the most part, the democratically elected leaders, whether it's, the German government or, Ursula von der Leyen, EU Commission president, or even, take your Joe Biden or, Justin Trudeau, that sorry excuse for a prime minister, they are all puppets.
Yeah.
They are not running the show. They are not. They are puppets. They're just, repeating whatever lies, whatever lines they're being given, from whoever. But it's these globalitarian misanthropists, and from their perspective, democracy. Oh my God, it's such a nuisance to them. You have to ask the people seriously, but the people don't want what they want because, then let's say they want to eat steak, but they aren't allowed to eat steak anymore because, it's obviously killing the planet. So, but the globality misanthropists, they still want to eat steak, So they come up with this, eat bugs, whatever. So there is like this, all of these layers are going on. But it seriously, there is a few people actually pulling the strings behind the scenes. And it's not Klaus Schwab either, by the way. I mean, he is the idiot putting his face in the camera and just, repeating whatever agenda they came up with and advocating that. But what they can't do to abolish them, they can't, show up and say, we don't want you to vote anymore and, we need to get rid of democracy, but the people don't want what the globalitarian misanthrope wants. So this is not working.
So she's describing pretty much crisis reaction solution. So they can't come in and plainly say, we don't want you to vote anymore. We want to censor the internet. They're going to say, for your safety, comrade, we're going to censor the internet to make you safe. But they're not saying safe for you and me. They're saying safe for them to be protected from you and me, unfortunately. So Christine Anderson is very, very interesting in the things that she's talking about in interviews, and I enjoy a lot of her interviews. So that's there you go. You can check that out. Justice Center, Maxime Bernier is responding to the Justice Center, and they say the court has dismissed the appeal to Ontario's vaccine passport that was meant to proceed today, calling it moot. The respondent, Ontario government, had not previously asked for it to be dismissed as moot. And Maxime Bernier says it's moot again. This new catch-all argument of incompetent pro-regime judges who refuse to pronounce on violations of our fundamental rights and freedoms. The murderer isn't killing anyone now. He killed his victim last year. It's moot. Release him. So, yeah, mootness is get out of jail free, and they don't have to make a ruling. They can just say, I'm not going to rule on this. It doesn't apply anymore. And that's not good because now no precedent is set. So if they come back with these vaccine passports, people may have a legal obligation to listen to them, flimsy as it is. I mean, the whole thing was poorly contrived in the first place, and I don't think they'll get away with it again. Although, depends on. Hello, everyone. Thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to CanadaPoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful